It's the holiday season and I'm reminded of a song, What Do the Lonely Do on Christmas? Have you ever wondered about what people do who live in homeless shelters or on the streets do every night? Do you wonder how they survive? Or why is there homelessness in our country where elected officials and other people live influenced, or at least modest lives, and where you can find a church in most communities? What are the effects of homelessness on all of us? How can we fix this problem in our own community, or do we even care to? Today, on The Morning OJ, we hope to get some answers. Hello, and welcome to The Morning OJ, a show where the youth gets to ask the hard questions. I'm your host, Trinity Oseni.
And I'm your co-host, Jalan, the J in OJ. Today we are talking about the problem of homelessness and how this problem not only affects homelessness persons, but the rest of us as well.
According to the statistics of HUD, people were experiencing homelessness on a single night in 2018. This number represents 17 out of every 10,000 people in the United States. Most people experiencing homelessness are an individual of 67%. The remainder, 33%, are people in families with children. Public policy has put a focus on additional subpopulations. One of the subpopulations is youth who are under the age of 25 and living on their own without parents or children. This group is 7% of the total homelessness population. In the recent years, coordinate effects of all levels of government have also targeted veterans. 7% of the total homelessness population and chronologically homeless people, 18%. This last group consists of people who have disabilities, who have been homeless or has an extended period of time or repetitively.
Our first guests today are pastors Milt and Linda Matthews. Milt Matthews Foundation, founders of the Milt Matthews Foundation, who have dedicated over 25 years of their lives building relationships with homeless persons, helping them to get on their feet and find a purpose in their lives. Welcome and thank you both for being on our show. We want to remind all of our guests to please feel free to have some our OJ if you get thirsty.
Let's start with these important questions. I've heard homeless families living in motels or staying with relatives. Why do you think their homelessness in our country where elected officials or other people living affluent or at least most modest lives, and where can you find a church in most communities?
Well, I'll take that one. For a pastor who pastored a church for the homeless, for the least of these, we hear all kinds of things of why they're homeless. The first thing I ask them is, why are you homeless and why are you in the position you're in? And a lot of times I get all kinds of answers. I mean, you hear all kinds of things. But the bottom line is, the reason that most people are homeless, I believe, that it's not enough love. Not enough love in the families. And then they're not educated. And once they're out of school, it's not enough love in the community. And not enough love in the church. So I think if we as Christians love our brothers and our sisters and see people who are homeless as our brothers and our sisters, I think we can solve the problem.
All right, thank you. I was also wondering, what are the effects of our homelessness on all of us, and how can we fix this problem in our own communities?
Well, I think that Pastor Matthews pretty much answered the question. First of all, thank you all for having us here.
Of course.
One of the things that we've been able to do, I believe, successfully through the Milt Matthews Foundation, which we invoke a threefold process of salvation, that is helping people to understand who God is and who God can be in their lives, renewal and productivity. Now, the renewal piece allows people to be able to think differently about themselves. So when you think differently about yourself and you begin to know that you can do all things through Christ, then you have a better perception of who you are. And so we want to drive people more to identifying their purpose in life, because every life should have a meaning. And then, of course, productivity. Homelessness has many faces. Some people are homeless because they're addicted to drugs. There are a great number of people who are homeless because of mental illnesses. There are other people who are homeless because they lost their job, and there's domestic violence. There are all kinds of faces to homelessness. And I agree with Pastor Matthews. What we have to do as a community is to work closer with people. It is true that they need daily food and clothing. Those are basic essentials of life. But what they really need is love from their brothers and their sisters, and our walking them through that threefold process of salvation, renewal, and productivity. But by the grace of God, many of us could have ended up in the same situation.
Your website for the Milt Matthews Foundation shows you guys are doing a lot of wonderful things. Could you tell us about your former careers and aspiration and what made you decide to help the homeless?
Yeah, well, I come from the entertainment industry, and one of the things that we do, we try to allow God to use what's on the inside of us to help them. One of the things that we do, the first thing that I do is we incorporate them into the church. We get the singers, we get the ushers, we get those who want to do all kinds of things in the church. And we have a quartet group called From Bondage to Freedom that I produced, and when we rehearse, we get together with them. They sing the songs of why they sing the songs about them. For instance, they sing a song called "I'm Free," talking about what their testimonies are and how God delivered them from bondage. So those sorts of things.
And you might want to add, Pastor Matthews, we also produced a play called Crying from the Streets, which is a true, real reenactment of the lives of men and women who were on the streets as drug addicts, prostitutes, pimps, panhandlers. And you can see their lives unfold through your very eyes once you see the production, because they're sharing of how God brought them from a state of hopelessness and helplessness into a productive life. It is one of the most rewarding experiences, I think, for a person to witness, is someone going from the streets to becoming productive.
Okay. Based on your own experiences over the last 25 years, what do you think are the most reasons people become homeless, and what is the most important way to build relationships with homeless people so that they can trust people to help them?
Well, I think if the church would just get to know homeless people, get to know who they are, get to find out, the things that they like, because most of the times when you look at people and you think people are bums, but they're not. People are smart. People on the streets are smart. They have a lot of ideas. They're very creative, and like my wife said, when we do the play, they are acting. You would think that they are actors because they act out of what they know and who they are. So I think if the church would just get to know those who are on the streets and get to find out something about them, then I think they can come along fairly well.
Because there's basically no them and us. We've got to let people know that we're all on the same footing in the eyes of God. There's no little U's and little I's, or big I's and little U's.
Very good. Pastor Milt, can you play us a little part of a song you wrote using your talents as an artist and music producer?
Let's
hear it, yes.
And, Are you in that place where the Spirit speaks to you? Are you in that place where you let them guide you through? It's the place where man cannot touch with his hand. Are you in that place where Jesus is? Well,
Thank you.
That was very good, man. What was that? Oh.
Well, we have to take a short break, but up next we'll hear from former homeless person along with Matthew as they share some heartful experiences that you won't want to miss. Stay tuned.
We believed in something bigger than ourselves. The military took me to one side of the world and her to the other. And even though she was always the strong one, when we caught up years later, I found out she had fallen on some hard times. It was her call to make, but doing it together made all the difference.
For veterans who are homeless or on the brink of homelessness, call 877-424-3838.
I want you to go back to basic Bible class, all right? I want you to know who you are. See, God have a plan for you, man. And your purpose in life is not to get high. You're not here just to get high and die. You're here for a reason. You have to...
Don't touch me!
This ain't what the Lord has said.
The Lord?
Yeah, the Lord.
Hey, where you see the Lord at out here? Huh? Where you see him at?
I see God everywhere.
So he out here with us right now.
Right now, my brother.
Man, so he was there when my brother got shot and the back of his head came on. He was there, right? That's what you trying to tell me? And I told you to say
Right
something.
there, brother.
Hey, you full of. So the Lord was there when my mother had cancer?
Yeah.
And she choked to death with her own vomit? He was there? Ain't no God, man. I'm going to prove it to you right now. I'm going to do you right now.
Welcome back to the Morning OJ, a show where youth ask the hard questions. Please welcome back our guests, the Matthews, along with our two additional guests, Mr. Michael Kelly, and Mr. Irving Dillard. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you.
My first question to our guests who have joined us is, can you please share or describe how you became homeless once upon a time and one of your worst memories or experiences?
Well, how I became homeless, I was on drugs. And that's what's the worst experience I can have. A drug addict, not paying your bills, use all your money to get high, you end up in a homeless shelter. And that's a bad experience.
How did becoming homeless make you feel, and what do you do to believe that really helped you get off the streets and back to a purpose?
It made me feel pretty bad. I knew I was more than the life I was living, not being productive. My parents raised me better than that. I knew there was more in me than that, but yet here I was in the shelter. I was on drugs. I was failing my children. My family wasn't proud of me. So I was a sad person. You know, but I got on a bus one day that we called the White Cloud because I wanted something to eat. And when I got there, something happened that I wasn't expecting. Something different, something I had no idea would happen to me. There were a group of people that took time out of their own lives to love me. I mean, not just to tell me about the gospel, but to show me what it really meant. And that did something to me. It gave me strength, it gave me hope, it gave me power. It made me want to be what I knew I was. And they helped me to do that. They personally got involved in my life. They held my hand. They took me places. They did things with me. They showed me how to do it instead of just telling me how to do it. And that helped me to be what I am right now. God is a good God.
Boris.
Yeah.
All right. To show that there is hope, can you please tell us about your lives now and what has become your purpose?
Well, my purpose in my life, my purpose is to walk in my destiny that God called me to be a preacher a long time ago. But my disobedience led me to a lot of other stuff by rejecting it. And the Bible said, a good man's steps is ordered by the Lord. And because I know not what to do, the Lord led me to these beautiful people here. And they had the ministry, homeless ministry at the time. And when I first saw them, my mind was I was just messed up, you know? And, but eventually, through them, Lord blessed them. I got on my feet. I lived with them for years. And they was a blessing in my life. And I where I'm at now.
Right. Praise God.
All right.
How dangerous is it living on the street, and what do the homeless do all day? What happens when their mind is off the streets too long? Does drugs become a part of homeless life, and how?
Drugs, it's a big part of homeless life, homeless living. Pastor Matthews commissioned this session on Sunday mornings called From Bondage to Freedom, because it saw over the years in his ministry that many of us that come from the shelter were on drugs. Not everyone, but a large majority of us were. So he wanted to address this problem, and that's why he established From Bondage to Freedom, which we do every Sunday morning. And when I was in the shelter, the drugs are so prevalent that we were in a stronghold. And a lot of homeless brothers and sisters are in strongholds, and it's gonna take something more than people handing out sandwiches and blankets to break this bondage. It's that strong in their lives, because I experienced it, I know it, I know what it is, I know what it does to you, I know how it destroys your character, the very nature of who you are. It causes you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. So we know it, we've experienced it, so we want to go back to help our brothers. And that's my purpose in life, to go back, serve the Lord, and help the brothers because somebody came and helped me.
What role do you think family and education have in contributing to the homeless problem? Do you or others you know have problems at home and learning in school?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, go ahead, my brother.
I'm going to say minimal. Education is minimal. Now, I know how that sounds because I dropped out of school in the 7th grade. And basically, I stopped really going to school in the 5th grade. Yet I can read and write. And if not for one day me making a huge mistake, because a trap was set for me. You know, I was doing drugs and alcohol and weed, But one day I went to get what I liked, they didn't have it, so of course, how the devil works, he put something in front of me knowing I would choose it, and it was crack. And when I tried it 18 years later, my life was destroyed. You understand? So, Zach?
Oh, man, I was just thinking. Repeat your question again, please.
What role do you think family and education have in contributing to the homeless problem? Do you or others you know have problems at home and learning in school?
Well, we have people come to our church that are college educated, and then there are those who just graduated high school, and then there are those like myself who never finished high school. I mean, it's a range. So I through my experience, I would say it plays a minimal part, but that's not the main reason why people end up homeless. It has to do with disobedience and sin. And
I'm sorry to cut you off.
go ahead, you're fine.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your life
Good
stories
talk.
with us today. In our last segment, we would want to learn how our youth using talents to help with the problem of homelessness and to serve their community. So I hope you will stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Sergeant Michelle Garcia served meritoriously in Iraq and has the medals to prove it. Corpsman Richard Stokely took the skills he learned in Vietnam and put them to good use as a paramedic. But soon after leaving the military, these veterans faced homelessness. Even after Michelle lost all her savings, and even after Richard battled alcoholism for years, they both reached out for help when they needed it most. A simple phone call put them in touch with a trained professional from the VA. If you know of or are a veteran in need, make the call.
Welcome back once more. Joining us on our show is a teen entrepreneur, Jeremiah Griffin, who will be telling us about a couple of businesses he has or he is creating. Welcome, Jeremiah. Please tell us about your business.
Thanks for having me. It's really wonderful to be here. First television appearance, so let's see how it goes. But a couple of years back, I had started a small business building computers. I'm an unrepentant nerd, so it's one of the things I just love to do, and decided, why not try to make some money from it? But I had other passions, one of which being photography, and I always yearned to do street photography and to photograph the homeless. But there were a couple things, keeping me from doing that, and mostly it was just I felt like I was going into their space. I was invading their privacy, because the closest thing a homeless person has to a home is the street. So I can't just walk onto the street, take a photo of them, shove a camera in their face, and act like that's okay, that's ethical, it's morally permissible. And so this past summer, I was studying in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and right outside of the university was this man who was in just a really sorry state, and it was a really somber, I had it in my mind, and it was just a somber, beautiful photograph I could take of this man and try to tell his story. And I just never could bring myself to do it, because I've always felt that when you do that, when you take a photograph of a person like that, you're robbing them of their privacy and of their agency. And I came back and I wanted to figure out a way to solve that. And I felt that through Indigence Project, which is the name of the photo series I'm working on, that if I dedicate that to their benefit, if I dedicate that to donating funds and time and resources to help pull these people out of the situation they found themselves in, that would be enough.
So you did say that you started like with computers. What was your first computer that you built?
Oh goodness. I wouldn't say built so much as destroyed. My parents had this big old fat chunky laptop that, you know, when I was like 5 or something, I just loved to play that little pinball. It was Microsoft Pinball on. I loved to play it, and then it got to the point it burned out, blew up, and so I just resolved at the age of 5 to see how I could fix it.
Cool.
Didn't happen. It was in 1,000 pieces. We had to throw it out, but you know.
You were really interested. I'm glad. That's really cool, man.
Yeah. So I mean, just over time, I got to the point where I was, you know, years later, I started building servers and desktops and stuff, and you know, I just decided, you know, I want to keep doing this.
That was great. So I think one way to stop problems with homelessness is to bring homeless persons out of the shelter daily into the libraries to read and use computers and get assistance finding information that could help them with themselves, which is important. And to use arts like plays in front of elected officials or in schools to teach how to create a discussion among students. I also think that homeless pets should be brought to be loved and give love to homeless persons for a time every day, because love is key to solving the problem of homelessness. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, totally. Of course. You know, and it is about telling stories. It's about storytelling. It's because there's a stigma against being homeless. People have these preconceived notions about these people, and they look at the idea of a homeless person and not the person themselves, and it's a tragic, terrible thing.
Unfortunately, our time is up. I hope this discussion about homelessness helps you take action to help our homeless communities to get back to a purpose. Please stay tuned to our show and learn about more important, eye-opening topics. If you want to be on our show or to have a topic you would like to share, please send an email to www.infofacept@comcast.net.
Thank you all for tuning in to Morning OJ. Don't forget our OJ in the morning because it has a lot of vitamin C. Until next time.
Can I say one more time? I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I'm not where I used to be. Satan, you paid the last trick on me. Thank you, Jesus. I'm free, I'm free. Thank the Lord, I'm free. We have gone from bondage to freedom.